So I love throwing a wacky worm. I mean, there's all kind of different lures that you can throw a wacky worm with. You know, Cinco, all kind of weighted stick baits. This is that magic worm that I had on the drop shot, and this is I have two different classifications of a wacky worm. There's a weighted worm, and the magic worm is what I kind of essentially call an unweighted worm. So there's times when the fish are high in the water column to where I want to fish this one that does not sink near as fast as a weighted worm or Cinco or anything like that. So I'm fishing this magic worm higher in the water column. I get to see a lot of the fish, the bites that come. And as you can see, it sinks, and if you let it sink on slack line, it'll have that little shimmy, just like most of the weighted worms do as well. I can't even hardly see this thing. I should have got a brighter color, but that thing has just a crazy amount of action. And the setup is one of the things that I have figured out is a big deal for landing a higher ratio with this setup right here. You can use most any kind of shorter shank. This is a Big River Gamakatsu hook. It's a heavier gauge wire, keeps it down a little bit. I'll go to a little bit lighter wire if I really want to keep that worm up in the water column. And then I'll have probably a 10 or 12 pound leader, fluorocarbon leader, that's about 4 feet long. I've experimented with different lengths. I'm telling you, I've dialed in the system for me. I'll catch almost 100% of the fish that bite this thing with about a 4 foot leader, and then I'll go to I'll have a heavier braid, like a 16 or an 18 pound braided line, and then I have a light action rod. I mean, you can see that's pretty soft. Yeah. That is the deal. I'm telling you, I tried a medium fast. It's too heavy. It was too heavy. I would lose the fish. I get the bites, and it's almost a naked hook, right? And I get the bites, and I get the fish on. I'd get them halfway back to the boat, and they would jump off. I don't understand exactly the physics on why that was happening, but I went to a lighter rod. I said, I'm going to try that. It works with a chatterbait. I can explain that later as well. But when I went to that lighter rod with this setup, it absolutely dialed it in. That lighter action really, really is the deal. So whatever you throw your wacky rig with, I'll bet you if you went to a lighter action, you'll catch almost 100% of the fish. And I think what happens is that when the fish bite it, that lighter action rod will just slowly load up. No matter if you just reel down and set the hook on them, it doesn't matter because the rod is so light. You're gonna put pressure on that fish over a period of time. Even a second and a half versus a quarter of a second, and then that hook is going to find a soft spot. And once that hook finds a soft spot and embeds itself, that fish is done. But I think what that stiffer rod was doing was that when you get that bite and you'd set the hook, that hook point would pop into whatever it was like. So it would set itself into harder flesh around that mouth because you set the hook immediately. You didn't like slowly set the hook into that fish. And I'm talking like a half a second versus a quarter second is a big difference here. But that's my theory on why it changed. The catch ratio went so much better with that softer rod. But that is a big deal. Soft rod, you'll lose way less fish on the wacky rig. And the wacky rig, I used to almost exclusively fish during the spawn. The rest of the year, Uh-oh. I knew something was going on.
He's going again.
Uh-oh.
He got the side of it. He don't have the hook.
He's just got the worm? Okay. Uh-oh.
Now he's got it. Now he's got it.
What happened? What's going on? Stop that.
There he is.
So when one bites it like that, my thoughts just flee the building. They go right out of the. So that really used to mess me up when I was doing seminars and I'd get a bite. I'd just completely lose my train of thought. Absolutely, completely lose my train of thought. So what I was saying, because I remember, is that the wacky worm, almost, it was like a spawn, post-spawn, that was it. That's all I fished a wacky worm. Dude, wacky worm is nasty all year long. Even, ponds, you can use it year-round in ponds, but I'm talking lakes, rivers, wherever. When they're feeding up, that's when it can be really good. If you see bluegill swimming around the bank, a wacky worm will work, period. No matter, from March, around this part of the country, March all the way through October. And it's a deceivingly good lure in the fall. Because a lot of times those fish are up. They're looking for bait fish, more so than I would say bluegill at that time. But in the fall, the fish have been pressured very heavily.
He's on.
Uh-oh. I did it. Oh, he's done it.
He took it all the way. Yeah,
He's done it.
He wasn't playing.
My bad. I'm trying not to set the hook on this fish.
No,
He may have set the hook on himself. I don't want him to swallow it. Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, no. But that just tells you,
That's how you
like, you need to put some pressure on them if you want to actually catch the fish. Like, because they could swim around all day, and then you just, what happened? It felt like I had a stick on there or something. But yeah, year round. How do you set the hook on it? That's a good question. When I do get a bite and I do want to catch it, all you're going to do is reel up all your slack and then let the rod load up. I don't want to put too much pressure on them because I don't want these fish to jump out of the tank and go into the concrete, because that would be a traumatic experience. Definitely for the fish, but probably for us as well. But you want to reel up all the slack and then let that rod fully load.
Yeah.
When that rod is fully loaded, that's when the hook is going to be set. When that rod is fully loaded, those fish will shake their head. When those fish first shake their head, that's when the hook gets set. So when you do get a bite, you in your brain you want to say, all right, I want to load my rod all the way up so that when that fish first shakes its head, it's gonna get the hook set. That's the same thing for a drop shot. It's the same thing for anything basically with a spinning rod. That's how you set the hook. You want that rod to fully load. When that fish shakes its head, boom, that's when you're actually setting the hook. But as I was saying, that wacky worm in the fall is really underrated. I'm guilty of sleeping on it myself, of not throwing it, because like I was saying, those fish get accustomed to a lot of topwater baits. They get accustomed to a lot of bottom bouncing baits. They get accustomed to spinner baits and chatter baits, all these vibrating baits. So something that's very subtle, like the wacky worm, comes into play, and all you got to do is just get their attention, just to make them look at it, and it doesn't put off a lot of vibration. It doesn't hit the bottom and make any sound. So like, there's nothing that they could associate danger with this other than that's something that looks like what I want to eat. And then as you can see, even in this tank, those fish are still eating this wacky worm. They're eating that little magic worm. Like I said, that's that Alabama brim color. It's been one of my top colors. It's got that little purple kind of hue to the bottom of it, so it gives them a little visual that they can see to see all that action that it's doing. So, any more questions on the wacky worm? Pretty basic. You just gotta fish it. Don't use too heavy of a rod. I think that shorter leader, there's something to it, because when you make a longer cast with it, it just takes just a tiny bit of action, a tiny bit of pressure to make that worm collapse. And I think that's what really draws them to the bait and makes them bite the bait, is that worm collapsing and then straightening out.
John, so salt content matters in the butter and the way it's going down.
Uh-oh. Salt content
With the action of the worm as it's coming down. If there's not enough salt, it's not going to sink. It's not going to
this,
fall.
there's other components within the bait that make it, that affect the buoyancy other than salt. Salt does play a factor. Salt is denser. Salt does sink. But if the bait is full of plastisol, which is one of the components of most soft plastic fishing lures, that is denser than the fillers that they use in the soft plastic worms. So like a Cinco sinks because it's almost all plastisol. There's almost zero fillers in that bait. Plastisol is more expensive, so that's why the Cincos and many of the other weighted stick worms are heavier, is because that thing it's basically all plastisol, and then the fillers are what are more buoyant because they're less dense. So the more fillers that are in there, the more that bait is the less it's gonna sink fast.
Affect action as well?
A little bit. Like the faster it sinks, the more it's gonna shimmy, and that's one of the reasons that the Cinco does the shimmy, or any of those weighted baits. Like the faster they sink, the more it's gonna shimmy. But the Cinco and any other bait that's soft affects that shimmy. That's why, to me, this magic worm has that shimmy, has that little bit, because it is very soft. But because it has no salt, it's also more durable. I mean, I've caught 10 fish on one magic worm before. And just one little trick, one little tip is when you catch one on a magic worm and it's wacky rigged, because it kind of bores out the hole a little bit, I'll take it off and move it up just about a 1/16 of an inch, one way or the other, and push it back through so it's in a new hole, and then you can catch another one, and then you take it and move it again. But if you leave it in that same hole after about the second or third fish, there goes your worm when halfway through the fight. So that can definitely keep them on there. Do you have a question?
No O-ring?
No, I don't use an O-ring. Even with the weighted stick worms, you will lose a few fish with the O-ring. Period. I don't care what anybody says. You have the highest landing ratio with no O-ring. I call it harpooning through the side of the worm. You harpoon through the side of the worm, that's going to be your highest catch ratio, period. If you're just in a pond fun fishing and you don't want to litter the pond with, baits being discarded potentially, you could use, one, you can use an O-ring. I would say it's like a 90 plus, a little over 90% landing ratio with the O-rings. But I want 100% landing ratio. Because I'm fishing in tournaments, I'm fishing against the best bass anglers in the world. I cannot afford to lose a fish.
Sure.
I'd rather lose a worm than a fish. So that's the reason that I do that with that.